Andrew McCart, IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. I'm always delighted to be joined by Mr. Eddie Hearn. Eddie, we're in Leeds. You love Leeds with the crowd and all that. Kiko Martinez, the rematch against Josh Warrington. Just tell me about this fight.
How are you, Andrew?
I'm very, very well.
Long time. This is a weird one, to be honest with you. I mean, look, obviously, we're 4 rounds into November the 13th. Kid Galahad is destroying Kiko Martinez, and all of a sudden one of the most shocking turnarounds in a fight, one of the most shocking upsets I've ever seen takes place, and Kiko Martinez becomes the new world champion. Fast forward on, obviously we had promotional options on him as well. Spoke to Kid Galahad. At first I think he knew he had to move up in weight, but also wanted to do that rematch. Kiko Martinez not really interested in that rematch, and if he did want to do it, wanted to do it in Spain. He wanted Josh Warrington. He said, I beat him before, and I know this time I'll knock him out, so I'd rather make that fight. It was never, not even when he won the fight in Sheffield, did I even think about the Josh Warrington fight. And I don't think Josh Warrington either thought about that fight, because we were looking at the Lara trilogy or a fight in America. And I just phoned up Josh and said, look, this is madness, but do you want to attempt to become a 2-time world champion? Kiko Martinez wants you, and he wants it in Leeds. And he was like, wow. Sort of thought about it for a second and said, cool, of course. So Josh now, the ups and downs of Josh Warrington's career, from vacating the title to look for a bigger fight, and then having a warm-up against Lara, getting beat, going back, rematching him at Headingley, technical draw, and now fighting again for a world title in Leeds is amazing. And a massive opportunity for both, because the unifications that sit beyond it are huge, and this is the fight that really opens up. We talk about those American fights for Josh, which is what he really wants, but before we were approaching Santa Cruz and people like that as a challenger. Now he would have the opportunity to go to America in a big unification fight. So this is probably the most important fight of Josh Warrington's career, and it's gone from the first fight, which was a very close fight, to Kiko's flying. There's question marks over Josh after the Lara stoppage. Who is the favourite now? Yeah, so it's a brilliant fight. And every Josh Warrington fight is a brilliant fight, and Kiko has the style to make it a fantastic one. So really looking forward to it.
It's going to be a dangerous Kiko Martinez. I mean, coming off that high over Kid Galahad and Josh Warrington's last 2 fights, he's not really got the ball rolling yet. He's not in that win column, so it could be another potential banana skin for Josh.
It's a really good fight. I don't know how to analyse it in terms of who's the favourite in the fight. There was times against Kid Galahad that Kiko looked old. He is old, to be honest with you, but he's very tough, he's very durable, and he punches very hard. But what he's got now is bundles of confidence. You'll talk to him later. He wanted this fight. It wasn't, it wasn't even really about the money for him. He said, I want to rematch Josh Warrington. And people look at Josh now and think he might be done after that Lara fight. I don't think he is, but I think, excuse me, it's cold.
Keeping that in.
It's cold up here. He doesn't think, Kiko thinks probably that Josh is on the slide, and he's full of confidence, and he's a lovely, lovely man. I mean, when he beat Kid Galahad, I was devastated for Barry, but it was an amazing story, and it's a really interesting fight.
You spoke a couple of weeks ago during the Wood and Conlan press conferences that beyond that fight, there's this fight, and it's the same again for Martinez and Josh going into this fight, that the next fight's going to be huge. Now, as a British promoter, can you imagine a Warrington versus a Mick Conlan, or a Warrington versus Lee Wood? It's going to be crazy.
I mean, firstly, that fight's got to be upgraded to the Super Championship, which we think it will be, the Wood-Conlan fight. That fight is just, it can sell out. It's got so many options. An outdoor stadium in Belfast, the City Ground in Nottingham, Ellen Road. It's got so many options. And the thing about Josh is he's always in thrilling fights. And all of those fights. But listen, don't rule out Kiko as well. Kiko's, probably thinking, no, me be the winner of Wood against Conlan. But you're quite right. As a British promoter, I'm looking at this and saying, and as a Matchroom guy, I'm looking at this saying Lee Wood against Josh Warrington, WBA, IBF unification, City Ground, Ellen Road, wherever it is. That's our preference, but Mick Conlan's got a lot to say about that, as has Kiko. Could end up being Mick Conlan against Kiko in Belfast. He's a big name in Belfast as well, Kiko.
Well, that's obviously after the Carl Frampton and fights, but listen, 24 hours on from your interview with Coogan, deadline days today. We spoke a little bit off camera. We were talking a little bit. 6 p.m. tonight. Purse bids. Is that still going ahead? You said sometimes there can be little business deals happening, but is the purse bid still going ahead tonight at 6 p.m?
That bid can get cancelled 5 minutes before, and there'll always be, just to sort of, don't mean to be condescending, but to educate people. This is the period now where actually you're more likely to do a deal, because Bob Arum and those guys, when you've got the A side in a fight like that, it's quite easy to win a purse bid because you can almost manipulate the bid. I talked about this to you earlier. So, for example, you agree a purse with Tyson Fury in advance and you overbid that number and you only have to pay the Dillian Whyte portion of that bid. I can't do that because Tyson Fury's on 80%. Or Tyson Fury might just turn around and say, no, I don't want to do a deal. Let's just go to purse bid. We will be aggressive in that bid, but this is also the period where a deal might be done, because if I'm Bob Arum or those guys right now, I'm thinking about losing control of Tyson Fury, and the value to me is having control of this fight. All of a sudden, I'm promoting Tyson Fury against Dillian Whyte, on our platform. So that's a major coup for us. But we're also, we've got to get the number right. We're not just going to wildly go in, and but we'll be aggressive for Dillian Whyte, and we'll see what happens over the next couple of hours. I had a call from Bob last night, which I actually missed, and I'm just messaging him to say, give us a call in the morning. That's the period. There'll always be one last call where Bob will phone up or whoever and say, what do you want to do? Are we doing this? Are we going to bids? And it might be, unless, what are you thinking? But you never want to go to bids when you've got the A side in a fight, because it's the danger of losing control. But maybe we won't win. Anything could happen.
Is it difficult for you to win this purse bid? Like you said, you only pay the Dillian Whyte portion, 80-20 split to Tyson. Is it more difficult for you to be aggressive in this purse bid?
No, it's very difficult to win the bid if they've already agreed a deal with their fighter. Right. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, because otherwise your bid actually is not a true bid, if that makes sense. You've agreed his side, which is the 80%. You're just bidding up the Dillian Whyte side. So, but I don't know. No, what Fury's thinking. I saw his stuff on Instagram. I just said AJ's lost his money. He's lost the money because he's turned down the Usyk fight next. That's the reality. So, but there was, I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking, but let's just get on with it. That's I think the best solution, and let's just get on with the fights that were originally planned. And as I always said in this little four-way conversation, everyone has to be aligned, and we never got to that stage. So, he's going to go on and fight Dillian Whyte.
Talking about them Instagram stories, you released one last night, just him laughing. Then he's got his team laughing this morning. It's very, very cryptic, but it seems to be directed at you. And yeah.
I don't know, ha ha. I don't know. We're easy, honestly. If we had the conversations about allowing Fury to fight for the undisputed title, we'll have those conversations. But he decided he didn't want to fight for the undisputed title. I saw his post a week ago saying, you let the Ukrainian take all your belts, now I'm going to have to do it. Well, you're not, are you? Because you said you want to fight in between. Why do you need a fight in between? But he's entitled to do anything he wants. And I don't know what there is to laugh about, but we're easy. Dillian Whyte's easy. Dillian Whyte would have had that conversation, or was having that conversation, or more than happy to fight Tyson Fury. Rather fight Tyson Fury. Us, we'll have that conversation, more than happy to fight Alexander Usyk. Rather fight Alexander Usyk. But we've already done that. AJ stepped up to the plate to fight Alexander Usyk. No questions asked, mate. Not, need one in between, or whoa, hang on, I'll just do a few posts on Instagram pretending I want to fight him. And I spoke to Alex Krasik last night. They feel that Tyson Fury has bottled the fight against Usyk. You've seen a couple of posts from Alex this morning, I don't know what to believe. I have no idea what's going on in Tyson Fury's mind, but let's just get on with it, as I said. And, my conversations were with Alex, if all those talks are dead, let's just crack on. And he said, yeah, great. So one thing you have to remember about Anthony Joshua, he will fight anyone. He's proved that time and time again. No one wants to fight Alexander Usyk. I don't blame Tyson Fury, but AJ did it straight off the bat. Many people would have dropped that belt. Many people. And it looks like, and he's more than up for, fighting him again and having another go. It's a hard task.
Did you see Mike Cobbinger's tweet when he mentioned the site fee being for the Tyson and Joshua fight was agreed for the Usyk and Fury fight out in Saudi Arabia. I believe it was in May or June, but the 11th hour got cancelled because teams couldn't agree the bargain to. What was all that about? Was it your side?
Still negotiating. You know, a lot has changed to the original plan. The original plan, which was if AJ has an interim fight, he then fights the winner of that fight for the undisputed. All of a sudden, with the WBC situation come in, the AJ fight against the winner would not be undisputed. That changes a lot of things because that was one of the carrots to us. So, you know, we were negotiating. AJ's turned down the opportunity to step aside many times for this fight, many times. So it's my job to make it more attractive to him. That's called negotiating. And that's what always goes on at the final hour. But in the end, having got to a position where I think everyone was comfortable to move forward and just look at the longer form agreement with the finer details, Tyson Fury said, no, I want an interim, I don't want to fight Usyk. Straight away, I'd like an interim fight. And that was another thing that killed it because we don't necessarily trust a lot of people to have a fight and then fight AJ after, unless it's concrete and papered and there's penalties. But what we're not allowing is an interim fight, then Usyk, then another one, 3 fights in a year. When did that happen? Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, look, we were all willing to have the conversation, but now it looks like it's irrelevant.
That long form agreement, did you push something out there to like Bob Arum and Frank to say that this is what we want, and AJ's side, do you agree with it? Did you lay out a plan for them?
It wasn't to do with everyone had their own conversations. So our conversations were not with Bob Arum, and our conversations were for Anthony Joshua's situation and his deal. Okay, so they had their own conversation. I wasn't part of that, but you know, in the end, I think Fury just said, I want to fight in March, and you know, he wanted to have a warm-up fight, then fight Usyk, and then in the end, when that sort of fell through, he said, I'll fight Dillian Whyte instead.
Sorry, one more on that then. It seems like it's going to be Fury versus Whyte and the rematch between Joshua and Usyk. When will these fights fall in? Would it be like April, May?
Yeah, I think the April 29th is the date that if we win the purse bid, we have to do the fight by. So we have to do that fight by then. That's Fury against Whyte. AJ, I think, will be a little bit later. I think that'll be in May. So I think you'll see Fury Whyte in April, and then I think you'll see. I mean, if we win the bid, if Frank wins the bid, maybe he does.
How confident you win in the bid?
We're going to be very aggressive. Like, it'll be a major coup for us. But as I said earlier, it's not always easy being on the small end of the split. But it depends. I don't know Tyson's deal, what he's negotiating with Top Rank, etc. So there's a lot of work to be done today. So, you know, but the amazing thing is you would think that with someone with so much on his mind, I might get up there today and produce a subpar press conference. No chance.
You love this. You love this shit.
Spinning in my game. You're spinning 30 plates a day, from trying to get a kid out on his debut to defending his British title to signing a fighter to getting a world title shot to a purse bid in Mexico City to a purse bid with the British Boxing Board of Control to, you know, an international fight to try and negotiate a new Canelo deal to, I mean, it's a mad world, but you can never let it break you. You just have to embrace it and say, I want more, give me more problems, give me more aggravations, give me more challenges, because otherwise you go the other way and you just crack up. And you know, I'm not going to be around forever. I told you that. You're not going to see me at 70, 80, 90 sitting there arguing with people, talking to you, you know, getting tensed up, letting the shoulders go. Like, I'm not interested in that. And again, make history, right? Change people's lives, change my life, have a lot of fun, and then I'm done.
Talking about retiring, and there's probably a promoter. No, not quite yet. I know, but there's a young kid that's coming through that's who's looking to. Well, obviously, Jake Paul, your partner, your co-promoter in this one, Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano. What a fight, Ed. I praised you on your first sort of third of this year with the fights that have got coming up and stuff like that, but that one there is one I'm really looking forward to. I mean, history and all that sort of stuff's going to be made. Just talk to me about that fight before we go on and talk about Jake Paul beating you as a promoter.
Well, you're right. The schedule's fantastic for February and March, but April and May and June is coming in much stronger. And you've seen a part of that was April 30th announced yesterday. This fight's been a long time coming, you know, and there are a lot of times where you just think it's not going to happen. Now, you have to praise Jake Paul and Amanda Serrano, but the main reason this fight's happening from their side is because Jake Paul's done a really good job to increase her value, Amanda's value in the fight. So she ended up making a lot more money than she would have made 3 years ago when we tried to make the fight. So and she deserves it. She's a great fighter, and he's done a brilliant job. So for Katie, this is a fight she would have taken 2 years ago. She ready to take now. I'm just so happy that this is the moment where people will stop and watch women's boxing at Madison Square Garden with a huge platform, of global media, with DAZN, with Jake Paul and all that kind of stuff. And this is the moment we've been working towards for a long time. And it, not just bluster, but women's boxing is something that's very important to me personally. And Katie is the reason that happened. And no one understands women's boxing. No one understands the divisions. No one understands how to move female fighters or give them the opportunity or pay them that kind of money at the top end than us. And that's the perfect example of how we've made that happen. And it's not a case of just making a big fight and saying, yeah, I'll do that too. This has been a process for a long period of time. And Katie's a one-off. Serrano's a big name as well, but Katie is the true global star of the sport and a trailblazer. It's an undisputed world champion against a seven division world champion in Serrano. And we laugh about the Jake Paul stuff, and you come on to that, but that's a blessing. And that's just an example for me as a promoter where for me it's a lot less now about ego than it used to be. Maybe that comes with age, I don't know, but I'm happy I'm looking at Jake Paul last night across his Instagram. I'm going, I want to even drop him a line and go, mate, brilliant, keep going. And he's a really big part of the reason why this fight will be so big. And love him, hate him, whatever, I'm going to use him.
Use him in a good way, because we see what he does to Dana White. He rinses him in Instagram.
He doesn't mind being used, not in an abusive way. But I'm going to say, mate, the platform is yours. I talk for England. I might even be quiet next week. Next week we'll be in New York, I think Wednesday, and then we'll be in London with Jake Paul and the girls on Monday. And you'll see the turnout. This is a massive. You saw with the announcement yesterday. This is a massive, massive fight. And it's not just the biggest fight in female boxing. It's one of the most important moments in boxing history. And I can't wait for the fight.
What do you make of, I've seen a few critics on Twitter and Instagram talking about Katie Taylor's diminishing a little bit in her skill set. In the last few fights she's had, she doesn't look like the same old Katie Taylor back in the day when you first signed her. What do you make of these critics?
I think it's two fights, isn't it, they're referring to. One is Jennifer Han, and the last one is the fight in Liverpool. Two mandatory challenges, two fighters that, I'm not saying didn't come to win, but were quite defensive. I don't know whether Katie was firing on all cylinders. She will always say she was, but I can't imagine she was overly excited about those two challenges. No excuses. I think her performances were, for her, average in those fights. She's going to have to raise the bar. She will. She knows boxing inside out. She knows how good Amanda Serrano is. She knows a performance like that might not be good enough to beat Amanda Serrano, but she'll be right up for it. I mean, this is everything. This fight. Can you imagine the Irish in Madison Square Garden for that fight?
The Puerto Ricans as well.
Puerto Ricans, but this fight will only be one thing, a cracker. Both of them will go at it for 10 rounds, and it's going to be a brilliant fight, and a 50-50 fight. Real 50-50 fight.
Let's talk about Jake Paul then. I mean, you say you can talk for England, but you might actually be quiet. Ed, I've been interviewing for the best part of maybe 4 or 5 years now. I don't think I've ever seen a time where you have been quiet. So I don't think, even though you say you're going to be quiet, I don't think you will be. So
yeah, I won't be quiet. I'll be watching, learning maybe. Maybe he'll teach me a thing or two. Look, a lot of the time you look at Jake and you think he's a grade A plonker, right?
Watch what you say, because he'll go on Instagram and just...
He's fine. He knows that. I've said it before. I like him. I think he's very bright. I think he's good for boxing. But a lot of times I do watch him and go... And I'll be doing that during the build-up, but it'll be fun. We've both got the same ambitions in this fight, which is to make it as big as possible, because he wants... His ego is one of the reasons this fight was made, because he wants to be a part of history here, to say, I put that fight together, and he did. And he can claim that. And for the build-up, he's thinking, how do we make this fight as big as possible? So that's refreshing to me, to be working with a co-promoter that isn't looking at me going, you don't like, how can we actually, we don't really want to help him. That's the game, Andy. You know what I mean? Oh, we're co-promoting with him, but fucking where Jake is going, fuck Eddie Hearn. I don't give a shit about Eddie Hearn. How do we make this fight as big as possible? That's good for boxing. and that's good for the fight. And you will see come fight night how big this fight is. I'm telling you, this fight will be huge come fight night, and a lot of it will be down to him. I'll take my credit as well, but he can go. Let him go. Let him go. Let him do his silly stuff. Let him do his social stuff. Let him do his call-out videos. Let him take the mickey out of me. Like, I don't anything to give this fight what it deserves. And together, Matchroom, Jake Paul, DAZN, the girls, we will make this fight a monster.
Final one then, because I know there's a queue behind me now. Felix Cash, I just seen that you're on your Instagram. Good fight against Madiev.
Yeah, Madiev is. I mean, it's a dangerous fight because whenever you fight someone, you put a post out, and everyone goes, "Who's he?" And he's like WBA number 3. I think he's undefeated in 17 fights. This is a really tough fight, but the European title fight, which we're in line for, is coming in a couple of months. And Felix and Tony just said, let him go. He demolished Bentley in his last fight. Let him go and set up on the world scene. Really tough fight for Felix Cash, February 12th.
Ed, thank you so much. I know 24 hours on from Coogan, I didn't think I would get 21 minutes out of you, but I did, so thank you, and let's get the press conference started.
Nice one, mate.
Thank you, Ed.